Gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Be the Man podcast. Super excited and have been for a long time for the interview today. My guest today is Dr. Patrick Flynn. He is an author of at least 2 books, right? I Disagree. And is the second book, is the newest book, The Hormone Connection? Is that right?
No, that was the first one. The I Disagree book is now the I Still Disagree book is coming out in April of this upcoming year.
Fantastic. So got another one coming out. And what I'm most excited about, he's a family man with 4 daughters. The wife with 4 daughters is awesome. So, hey, brother, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here. Why don't you give us a quick introduction, and we'll dive into what you believe are the non-negotiables for really directing our health as men and as in families.
I think the non-negotiable is first to understand that men and women are dramatically different, both from a physical and a mental standpoint. So that will guide you from a standpoint of how you take care of a woman, how you take care of a man, but also how they enter the business world too, because how a man deals with stress is dramatically different, and how their body and physiology and mental aspect deals with it compared to a woman. And just to give a setback, I started my first clinic in December 27, 1999 on $500 that my mother borrowed me. And then it was kind of interesting. And I built now an international company, hundreds and hundreds of employees and doctors and stuff all over the US, a couple in Europe and expanding. And I employ a lot of men and a lot of women. I actually employ more women than men. And I tried to set the tone of being a man, saying, listen, I believe the major non-negotiable to me on anything is the effect of stress on women's bodies. And the effect that men the way they can deal with stress is dramatically different. And so I think that if we understand, first of all, that men and women are dramatically different in so many ways, they both have amazing gifts, because when I talk about certain things, and men are gifted in things, women are gifted in things, but men can be affected negatively and positively by certain things. Women can be affected negatively and positively by things, but women have a lot of negativity to their health and their emotional state when mental stress enters their life.
Whoa. So, well, let's just double tap right into that immediately.
Yeah.
Is what are the best recovery? Well, the way to kind of handle stress and recover stress, and some of the contrast there specifically for women. I'm sure you have some specific strategies, but let's maybe just touch on what's the different effect and what are the different strategies. Because I think through this all the time, and when I'm coaching men, I'm like, okay, we can do this, and it works.
Yeah.
But you're saying it's a totally different approach for women.
It is. I've kind of, because I have a lot of men that are doctors, but also great staff members that have different jobs through me. And I always tell people this: if you look at men, they got to dealt 3 major things. I call it 3 M's: mind, muscle, and money. Okay. And there's a certain stress load it takes to do that. As you guys know, and watching your podcast and watching Teeth Therapy, we have a mental stress load that we need to take daily. But the one thing about this is this: if you look at that mental stress load, there is a positive effect to our body. If I were to physically be there in the studio with you and attack you, by nature, your testosterone will go up. See, so our body physiologically reacts with a hormone production to survive that stressful event. Women don't have that same benefit, which leaves them more susceptible to where their body moves into a fight or flight degenerative response. And therefore, they start to lose certain hormones. So not only does their mental and physical capabilities start to go down under high mental stress, but it also affects them from fertility to cancers to heart disease to all the major factors, all things that they deeply fear. And so therefore, I think the number one thing for recovery on both sexes is just awareness. If a man is aware that his wife, who has amazing gifts, needs to be protected from a lot of mental stress, he's going to approach marriage differently. Like I always tell people this, women, I know this gets a laugh, but there's some importance to this. I always say this: who stresses out more, men or women? Women, I go, women. And I say, who causes women most stress? And they all yell, men. And there's some truth to that.
Yep.
You understand? And women and guys are like, holy crap. And I always try to teach men that, listen, you can be the greatest protector and provider, amazing thing to your wife. But if you're her number one stress, you can make her very sick. Vice versa, if a woman stresses you out, it doesn't really make you sick. If anything, actually our aggression or testosterone goes up, we get more aggressive that way. And that's why guys have to learn to be stoic and keep that under control. But the idea is awareness, I think, is number one, because when I go out and speak, I just got back from my initial book tour. I was gone for 6 to 7 weeks. And women came up to me and said, listen, if my husband or my boyfriend, my fiance knew that, or I want my daughters to understand this because they may be 7 years old and they went through all the stress and it beat them up like crazy. They want the younger generations to understand that. But it's really sad because there's obviously different levels of thinking on certain things to where people say, well, you're disempowering women. That's not really true. I employ actually the woman who reminded me that I was running behind after my last teaching to start the podcast was a woman. She has a very important role in my life. I could not succeed without her leadership and expertise and her nurturing guidance, which she has an amazing capability. And she's my head journalist. She does her, you know what I'm saying? And so we have to really recognize the awareness that we all have major gifts, but why can't we just accept that there's physiological consequences to women that aren't to men when it does come to mental stress, and then set both sexes up to win because we are different?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So, and on that point where, and you could see a valid argument there where you're saying, well, you don't want to overprotect and you don't want to keep them, underdeveloped so they're not growing and progressing. And you're not saying that. So where is it, have you noticed that men are causing the most stress, and where they can specifically shield or protect or make a shift so that their wives feel a sense of safety and certainty and protection?
Well, if you think about women, they're very attracted to guys that have purpose. They really are, because it brings them peace because they know everything is going to be okay.
Yep.
Men don't thrive in everything is going to be okay. We love adventure. Testosterone's very aggressive, very go for it. So when we're running towards something, that's when we're at our best. Guys that are sitting around just want to know everything's okay, I believe has been culturally developed. And therefore you have a mama's boy that a mom tells a son everything's going to be okay. I like to teach our men saying, listen, I have this, and I have nephews. I have now my nephew is basically my son, my oldest nephew. He just had a little boy and he's starting to learn to walk. Well, I tell people, you know what I do with him? I give him a little push and knock him over. And as he gets older, I'm going to teach him, guess what? For men, you have to make their life hard. For women, they have to understand life is hard. Find a good man that can protect you from the stress while you can flourish in all of your gifts, because some of those creative and wonderful things I have in my company came from women. You see what I'm saying? But the people that are supposed to barrel through and deal with that major stress and do the go-getting and produce it so the women have less worry are the men. I'm sorry. And I said, and people say that can't be done. Really? I have a big, huge 6 or 7 or 9-figure company and I started with $500, and don't tell me it can't be done.
Right.
And just like, for example, my beautiful bride, 22 years, just walked into the studio. You understand? And you apply that not only to your family, but you also apply that to your work. And doesn't mean, and some of the major positions I have in the company are held by women. So what they do is they confuse leadership with stress. That's not really true. You understand? Because there's characteristics of leadership that men have that they're great, characteristics of leadership that women have, for example, and therefore you're going to have a man that's going to go for it more than the average woman, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Women want to have that aspect, their hormones, estrogens connect, everything's gonna be okay moving forward, things like that. That's why if you ever think of it this way, if a guy comes to me and he's vulnerable, if a guy comes to me and talks about emotions, I don't want to hire him, because you know why? That means he's raised by his mama. He's not going to go get it. He's not going to be a go-getter. He's not going to put himself through stress. He's going to be more worried about things. Everything's going to be okay. I'm like, you're not going to accomplish anything in life. And if you're in competition, I'm going to beat you.
Yep. Love it. Oh, I love it. And this fits with something I've been doing a lot of coaching and teaching around recently, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I think it's fundamentally we're built for women to bring some of their problems and struggles to their husbands, but it doesn't necessarily go the opposite way, where men taking their problems to their wives has a different, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I think it has a different physiological effect.
Yep. Men should never bring their problem to women. And top of it, once again, if you look at what we're supposed to do, how are they going to give us advice to fix it anyways? You know what I'm saying? And I had a family member that was in prison for 8 years, and I went and visited them. And I would sit there and talk to the mothers and the girlfriends, and the moms would sit there and go, he's actually a really good kid. We're in prison. You know what I'm saying? Because moms are always going to tell their boys or that everything's okay and you're a good kid and some of this. It's like, no, listen, you tell another guy that, you're going to say, get your crap together.
Yep.
Do you understand? Mamas are going to be more nurturing by nature and stuff like that. And I understand that's a good physiological thing. We need that from them aspects of it that way. But once again, to actually succeed in the world, to succeed in life, those characteristics are not going to get you in very good places and stuff. And so therefore, men are supposed to go to men to help do their other problems, because here's what happens. By nature, if you address a person, if a woman comes to another woman, they're so much better listeners. They're so much better. By nature, estrogen makes them very connecting. They're going to listen. They're going to hear and stuff like this. And they'll tell them their feelings. And women by nature, being nurturing, will listen, have compassion. That's not what testosterone does to us. Men don't give a crap. We're not supposed to. We're supposed to move forward. And that's why it's like going, hey, listen, if a woman tells a man a problem, she's sometimes mad at him because his brain by nature is to go fix it and do it. So I said, ladies, if you don't want an answer from your man, don't bring it to him. If you just want somebody to listen and you want somebody to actually understand your feelings, don't talk to a man. Go talk to a girlfriend. Get girlfriends that you're supposed to have a group for.
Because of that fix it drive we have. I love that.
And by nature. And now we have a culture that's trying to shift that. We have churches and pastors and all things that are trying to shift that, trying to make men more into women. I'm like going, you're biologically working against everything that the way God created the body. And therefore you're wondering why it's so unsuccessful.
Yes. Yeah, brother. Yeah. Oh, I love that. We're literally fighting biology.
And I'm coming again. I'm just teaching from standpoint of biology. When I started to understand hormones at the level I did to help my wife recover from endometriosis and infertility, and now we have 4 beautiful daughters, the whole world said this. I said, I disagree. And that's why my second book coming out after all the COVID things, all that, I still disagree. And that's the name of the book, because I'm basing everything on just basic biological principles of how your body is created and how testosterone works, how estrogens work, and all the things. And then when I go speak at no matter where it is, doesn't matter if it's a medical school, chiropractic school, naturopathic school, medical conference, natural conference, church, or this, people go, makes a lot of sense. Now put these things into action. So therefore, you have to have an action plan. So what I did is I put an action plan in our clinics, and then it started with one clinic, and now it's branched more to now a network of international clinics. And now you got to get health recovery, but there's a psychological aspect to it. And the number one thing that I teach, number one thing that all my doctors teach, and all my practitioners, and all my health coaches and everything like that, they understand that the mental stress realm to women is very destructive for their overall physical and mental health.
Oh, okay. So related to that, I wanted to touch on a couple of things that have been coming to my mind, and I'm sure I know my listeners are curious. So what's the effect of, even these are like recovery methods or maintaining methods, but intense, vigorous workouts, men versus women, cold plunging, men versus women, and even maybe saunas. So things that men might turn to, women might also turn to. There's going to be a different physiological effect on those things.
Yes. And what happens is this: men could be more consistent. Women have it more difficult. It's really based on timing. For example, you have 7 children, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you're married to a wonderful woman, correct?
Yeah. She's amazing.
Yes. Now I want you to think about this. Do you understand? I have to correct you. You're not married to one woman. You're married to 4 women. Okay. Because physiologically, her hormones change. If she's still cyclic, has her period, it changes 4 times in a month. So there's mental and physiological changes that happen each week. So guys, you don't realize this. You have more stability to your hormones and physiology. She doesn't. And by nature, that's a great thing. So her hormones fluctuate every week. That's why she's mentally and physically different. Let me give you a physical thing. And so for all you men, you can ask your women this. A woman can put on a bra one week and her breasts are all nice and full. Next week, she can put it on. It's a bunch of shriveled raisins. Okay. Because hormones change. So your body changes physically, but those same hormones affect you psychologically. So women have more change in their physiology, even mental physiology and biochemistry. So they're going to look and see the world and act differently. So their needs from a health standpoint, food, exercise, sauna, cold plunging, no matter us, differs per week. Guys can be more consistent at it. Saunas, cold plunges, foods and healthy foods are obviously great for everybody, but women have to be more careful, especially when exercise, because they can push their body, exercise excessively, and deplete and hurt their hormones and make themselves sick and fat if they do it at the wrong time.
Wow.
So it's just teaching women differently.
It's so mind-boggling, because from a man's point of view, we're just so overall just consistent and stable in biochemistry.
Yeah.
But she has to work every week. It has to be a different approach.
It does. And so therefore, I'm not pandering to women when I say this, but I look at women and say, listen, you have it much more difficult than we do.
Absolutely.
We do. And men listening, I know this is a male dominant podcast. You have to have that understanding about her. So therefore, if you don't, and you think that she's going to always be the same, you better stay single, or you better find a guy in your relationship I don't encourage that, but you get my point. I'm being trying to be funnier because you're going to have more stability. You say, it's really funny. That's why women come to me all the time and say, Doc, I feel so unstable. I said, you're supposed to be, you're a woman. There's no such thing as a stable woman. It's impossible. And that gives them mental peace because they have such a diversity of emotions. And that's a good thing. That's one of the things that make them great. Do you understand? And vice versa. Don't ask me to be emotional. And that's why when women try to preach to men, guess what happens? It's oil and water. You don't even understand our physiology. We even have a culture today where people don't realize if you have good testosterone levels, you're going to have a sexual drive daily, all through the day.
Right.
You say, and so therefore, they try now to downplay. Here, let me ask a simple question. It may seem funny, but let me ask you this because there's some major truth in physiology. This, as a guy, you have a beautiful wife with 7 children. Let me ask you a simple question: do you want to have sex with your wife tonight?
If every day.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Does that make you a pig, disgusting, and perverted? But see, culture today.
I've been called that because the drive is there.
But you know why? But you know why it's been there is because the understanding of males and start understanding that is a normal physiological response. And Durang, I say women, what they do is, let me get back on my side now on this one, is ladies, we have a sex drive every day. It doesn't mean we get sex every day.
Right.
See, now women, okay, now I get it. No, but understand, and if women understood that there's an aggressive testosterone drive, not only it comes to competition, laser focused of that, ladies can actually get that to work to their advantage. Do you see what I'm saying? Yep. Instead of trying to yell at it, act like it, tell a man not to be a man, be more woman-like. So the concept of adding women characteristics, emotions, and nurturing into culture is, if that's the leadership of full thing, it's going to be very destructive because that's how you get participation trophies. Everybody wins. Guess what happens? Testosterone, no, I want to be the winner.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this whole concept, and I know it's going to be new for a lot of listeners, it's mind-boggling that as her biochemistry changes, and you just touched on it, it literally changes the way she sees things, like her perspective, her paradigm, her feelings, whether it's, one week she's not going to be discouraged by something. The next week she might be completely discouraged by the same thing. Like, walk us through a little bit deeper in the changes.
And 1 week she'll love you, 1 week she'll love you less.
Yeah.
It's not a joke. You say, and if you look at her hormones, if we look at this, I'll give you some extreme examples because you've had 7 children. And I don't know if your wife ever went through this. I hopefully not. But there's women that, once again, as they deliver a baby, they can get too low of hormones and they can go through postpartum depression where they don't have any connection or love for their child that was just born. And what that was, there was just a hormonal deficiency that led to that. And see, but once again, hormones fluctuate through the week. So how they look at their children, how they look at their job, how they look at everything, how they approach the world that week is different. And why can't we just accept that and go, it's just basic biochemistry and physiology, and now understand that, and now be as a protector and provider, be that person that's going to provide that environment for them to thrive, protect them sometimes even from themselves. Do you understand? To say, listen, you're going to go through these things. It's cool, but I'm crying today. Cool, cry. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. I
don't care if I have an employee that cries. It's a woman. It's going to happen. You understand? It's just by nature. You understand? But then if women go, no, I got to be more stoic like a man, and this, you're just going to stress yourself out and be something you're not.
Absolutely. We have to give them space to be that. So my follow-up question is there something we can strategically be doing to optimize healthy transitions? Because I imagine you come across a lot of things that, like, hey, those changes are normal, but these ones are off the charts. They're too deep or too far, or something's messed up there. What can we be doing to optimize the flow?
Well, let's look at this. As I taught men and women, it's very simple. Women transition about 4 times in the month. There's certain times, like, for example, the day 1 when she gets her period, there's a certain zone she's in compared to 2nd week, 3rd week, 4th week. And therefore, how they should plan their weeks and their activity, their physical activity, and even projects they take on should be based on their biochemistry. Wow. And so therefore, I tell women, just be very conscious of that. If you know you're moving to your 2nd week where you can handle more physically and mentally, put your big tasks on there. Your 3rd week, you better take it very easy because that's where you can really deplete your hormones and cause a lot of problems. So put certain tasks and things on there. You know, I tell people, it's like, that's why it's like, I know it sounds like a simple example, but on my podcast tonight, I'm going to talk about how ridiculous it is that everybody thinks they have to show up for every holiday event. Most women stress out about that.
Yep.
And so as a husband, you say, don't go. Mom's there to protect you. Because why? You're going to be stressed out, pack up the kids, go to your mom's. And then if your parents are divorced, got to go to your dad's, grandparents, also this. And you're not enjoying the holidays. You're actually stressed out about it.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you can't handle it, which once again, if there's a physiological burden, don't do it. You know what I'm saying? No, but my aunt who I haven't seen in a year, she's going to be there. She haven't seen her in a year. Your life doesn't change because you don't see her once a year.
Yep.
I just don't get it. You say, I just don't get it. And once again, women sometimes get really ticked off when I say it that way. I'm like going, well, then just tell me how I'm wrong about the analysis and things to where when you're screaming at your kids on the way to Christmas, walk in and go, hey, how's it going? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, you're just yelling at your kids, ticked off, stressed out. And now just because you walked in the door, everything's better. Yeah. So yeah,
it's a subtle form of self-sabotage.
It is.
Exactly.
But we culturally are trying to run our lives based on what culture says. Yep. But how are we doing? Women are more sick. People are more divorced. There's more things. Men are fatter, broke, all things more in history. Testosterone's low. Sorry. I always tell people the advice that we get is like listening to the weatherman. They're always wrong, but you always go back and check your app to see what the weather is going to be like.
And you keep listening. Exactly.
I don't get it.
I love it.
So I just said, I disagree. And if you have some physiological or biochemical and arguments that I can put out there that way, I'm more than well listen, because when I learned this stuff, no one taught me this. I sat there and went, here's a lab, here's what's happening, here's what goes on, this. Oh my goodness, a lot of mental stress, it drained your hormones. Oh my goodness. Well, what are stressors? Well, men are stressors. Well, the holidays are stressors. These are well, then why can't we just teach women that these things are happening? Because I would tell you, it's just the awareness alone gets women thinking about it, and they go, wait, I can't stress out about this. See, so when you look at things, I think the greatest thing that we can always teach people is just awareness. Yeah. Because then they can choose now, because their thinking has changed, because people are trying to change people's thinking, and therefore now the actions they're taking are leading to destruction. So I just got to come along and give them a different level of thinking, and their actions lead to a better health in life and more money and more happiness and more health and more things and going, so let's just look at the outcomes.
I love it. And is it dialed in enough that they could schedule out quarters and even a year if they know when their cycle is, and they could plan out bigger and smaller projects? I mean, is it that dialed in where they could forecast?
It's a reason why that women are known to have a cycle. It's coming around again. You're saying they can map it out. And actually by mapping it out, they actually will have a little less stress, will make their cycle even more stable.
Right.
So it's like, that's the great thing. It's just, and then obviously I'm going to throw a whole monkey wrench in this. Now, when a woman's menopausal, she has more stability to her hormones. And if she's taking care of herself, her testosterone levels do go up a little bit. So she can be a little bit more aggressive at things like that. It's why they have termed, that's why women at that age got the term cougar, because once again, they have a little bit more aggressiveness. They have a little bit more sexual drive, a little bit of this. And so therefore there are certain stages of life that women and men have to understand. I think from a society standpoint and accomplishment standpoint, I think that the culture has really destroyed women, where they've said, hey, listen, go chase after your career, do things this. Mm-hmm. I think that's detrimental to most women, especially teenage and young women, because you know why? You have a time period that allows you to be fertile. You have a time period. You know what I'm saying? You really do. It's going to end. Guess what happens? A man who is 85, if he keeps his testosterone levels and keeps his body pretty healthy, he can have a child with a 35-year-old woman. You know what I'm saying? Or a 30-year-old woman. See, our fertility continues. Theirs doesn't. And then therefore we are creating so much stress for women. By the time they get to me at 30 years old, they're sick. Yeah, guess what? They could be a lawyer, which I'm all in favor. My daughter, who's 20 years old, is following my footsteps. But me and my wife encourage her to, once again, to do it through your feminine characteristics. Yep. And do it so, and then she has a wonderful husband who's more like me, that protects and provides for her, who's already a doc, but allows her to flourish. And his job is to even protect her even from herself.
So that she can operate in her feminine sphere and not be expected to compete and drive consistently at a masculine level, you'd say.
Well, because if she did, she'd get sick.
Right.
I have female doctors, female nurse practitioners, female nurses that try to push at my level, and they physically have dropped. And I even warned them, don't do it.
Yeah.
Not a joke. So everything I preach, I got enough evidence to prove this to people. And then as people start to put this into practice, they go, holy crap, doc, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it. And that's why women need more sleep than men. They need more recovery time due to the physiological burdens that they have to deal with that men don't have to.
And how much more?
I say women need between 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night.
Okay.
Men can get away with 7 to 8. I like to see men still have about 8 hours sleep. Sleep is very important for both sexes. Women just need a little bit more.
What about food? Is the diet going to be
Um,
significantly different?
no, there's going to be macronutrients like proteins, fats, and carbohydrates that are needed. This concept of no carbs or things that makes no sense to me. Women don't. Both men and women don't eat enough proteins. Proteins are demonized by the plant-based community, which drives me nuts.
Right.
And you're wrong. From a standpoint this way, you can be a very healthy vegan. You just have to work 10 times harder than the person that eats meat. You're saying because there's certain amino acids you need to get at certain grams per day that you can get. You just have to prepare your food more than if I like, no joke. When I get done with this podcast, I'm going to make 4 duck eggs and I'm going to eat 0.25 grams of liverwurst, which has heart, liver, and kidney in there.
Nice.
And I'm going to get enough leucine for muscle protein synthesis. I'm going to work out in my gym that I have here. And I'm 49 years old and I can bench 250 pounds and I can outwork a lot of people. So we create that venue for people to have a physical and mental thing for guys here. And if you're a guy here in this company, we have a huge 70,000 square foot corporate office here with our major clinic and our corporate office that way. And those men are required to get their butt in that gym and working out every day and stuff. And on the flip side, women are meant to understand their cycles and know when to work out, but we have that availability for them to build their muscle protein. But even Erin, who actually you were chatting with before as I was coming on the podcast, I have her eating a certain amount of proteins that she would never have gotten advice from a or a doctor.
Exactly. I love that. Okay, that's a good lead in to toxins. I know you've addressed toxins. I would love for you to just nail some of the toxins in our body products, in our house, from laundry detergent to soaps to cleaning supplies. Let's hit some of the toxics and how that's affecting the hormones.
Yeah. I always tell people is the reason why I like to talk about toxins is because we have an element of control over them. We don't have an element of control of pollution, things like that. Yes, we should always promote no pollution and a better planet, some of that, not to the craziness that some of the lies that come out there, but we shouldn't be poisoning our rivers. Like, if I live by the Great Lakes in Green Bay, the paper mills, the car industries has poisoned our Great Lakes. That's disgusting. We got to clean up our waters, clean up some of this. But also on the flip side, we also don't want to be drinking tap water because there's a lot of chemicals in there that the recycling plants can't get out. So you got to have good filters. You got to remember, you can feed your body through your skin. So you should be putting healthy lotions on. For example, coconut oil and beef tallow are fantastic things for beauty for women to help them regenerate their skin, a good fatty acid content, both essential fatty acids, but also certain acids we need for good skin regeneration protection. We need to make sure we're not eating toxins. We got to make sure we're not injecting toxins. We got to make sure that we're not brushing our teeth with toxins and cosmetics that way. All those things, once again, are just things that have a domino effect where it's just a micro dose of something that builds up over time. And a lot of people have bad liver function where they can't clear out a lot of those toxins. And so then eventually that creates an inflammatory hormone and immunological response that leads to chronic illness. And even though we spend more money on healthcare and medical care in history, we have more cancer, diabetes, infertility, obesity ever in history because, once again, I equate our general advice from a medical doctor is like the weatherman. They're wrong most of the time, but people keep going back and asking them, but all they're trained to do is give you some drug or surgery. And that's why most medical advice is very misleading and wrong. Now, people sometimes get a little upset when I say that, but I'm like, okay, but then prove statistically I'm wrong. But second of all, you're confusing somebody going to a hospital emergency room and stopping a heart attack or a broken arm with being healthy and vibrant. Don't confuse the aspect. And that's why I created the analogy of fire department carpenter. A fire department puts out the fire house with axe and hose that causes destruction, and you got to rebuild the house with a carpenter. But guess what happens? They both have a job. Doctors should be fire department doctors, and doctors like us are carpenter doctors that know how to take care, maintain, and build the body. And if something bad happens, thank God we have some drugs or surgery to survive. But that's not healthcare. That's just management of some condition. And we saw over the last 3 years, they've really lied to people. And I tell people, 25 years I've been doing this, and started with one, like I said, one office and became international from the simple fact of saying, listen, I have no problem with the fire department viewpoint of healthcare to save somebody's life, but don't equate that with building a house and making somebody healthy. They're two opposite things. Vice versa. Don't look at my tools that if you have a heart attack that you want me to do it because you're going to die.
Wow, I love that. It's a great perspective. We've had that same vision. It's like, look, when there's an emergency, when there's a broken bone, absolutely, I'm going right to the doctor. But
Fire
if I
department,
just
put the
need to
fire.
get healthy, I'm going to use food and
Yep.
other means to get into that state of health.
Right.
So
And remember, there's no drug or surgery that can help you get a normal body. It should be used, like I said, my analogy, go back to this. Fire department, look at Mass Fire Department. But even through the process of saving your life, they destroy the house. You understand? They break down your door, they spray it all down. Yes, you don't lose your house, but you're kind of beat up and sick. That's why we have more money spent to healthcare, but we have more heart disease, cancer, diabetes, because we've convinced the people to just sit down and spray your house down every single day. And that's why we're so rotten. No, you got to be a carpenter to rebuild it.
wow. Okay. So cleaning supplies, same thing. Toxins,
Yep.
anything on the body,
Yep.
same thing. It's all just hitting it.
Yeah. And remember, things that we can control, because here's what happens. Because remember, if you look at a toxic ingredient, I want you to picture this and go back to my carpenter analogy. If I'm going to build a house, I'm going to have good lumber, not rotten lumber. So when you take, for example, like a trans fat compared to essential fatty acid, which one do you want to build your body out of? Your body will use them. Which one do you want? Do you understand? And see, would you rather build your body out of grass-fed liver or Oreo cookie? Do you understand? And so you have to look at that. So yeah. And so idea is this. So you need doctors that actually teach you what you need. And that's why when I talk about protein content, women especially don't eat enough protein. You have to look at the amino acid content they need for brain function, for thyroid hormones, for anabolic hormones, for just muscle protein synthesis, for metabolism. In this concept that you're going to get it all from, vegetable sources, I don't equate. I can prove to you can't do it. Now, what I do is this. I'm not saying you couldn't be very effective at doing it. You just have to work 1,000 times harder. And most people are really lazy. You understand? So that's why most people that have more plant-based diets are actually, with the exception of fiber, are very protein deficient.
Yep.
Very protein deficient. That's why they have to supplement. But if you have to supplement for your diet, I understand. Now, remember, I supplement things for my diet. You know why? Because we need 4,700 milligrams of potassium per day. And that's 7 to 10 plus cups of proper vegetables per day. And I just don't need enough. So I supplement with it. I'm smart. So therefore, I keep some physiological function. I supplement with it. Now, people say, Doc, but why don't you just eat it? Sometimes I get too lazy. I don't want to. Yeah. See, I have those conversations with patients all the time, right, and stuff. So just supplement with it. Now they're wrong. Supplement costs me money too. So therefore I have to pay for it too, just like you do.
Right. But make it easy to succeed.
Yes.
I love it. Okay. So I had a question that I wanted to ask, that I know listeners have asked as well. How do you detox? Is there a detoxing process that is effective? Like, okay, people are listening to this today. And they're like, okay, I'm getting rid of the toxics in my body products, in my house products, and we're trying to get the body back to a clean, optimal state. What are the best ways to get the junk out of the body?
Yeah. Well, remember, let's go back to this. You're genetically programmed to do that. Okay. So this concept of detoxing frustrates you a little bit because it's a natural kind of hoax a little bit. And let me explain. Your body has production and elimination processes every single day. Now, because people have been led by pediatricians, general practitioners, medical doctors, they actually put toxic burden. Remember, medication, a definition of medication is a non-lethal dose of a lethal substance. So they're giving you toxins all day long. So therefore, the burden that your body has taken is now affected some normal physiological processes of phase 1, phase 2 of the liver, of your GI function not moving the bowel strong enough that way. So really, your body is genetically programmed for all of these things of production and elimination. It's just that our eliminations have been slowed down by our current habits and toxic burden that we do have. So therefore, what really should people say, listen, how do I support the normal genetic physiological responses to eliminate something from my body? So that's when people say, I'm doing detox. I'm like, well, you should just be healthy and your body moves that stuff out on a daily basis. Okay. So now, number one is this, focus on this. Make sure that you have proper bowel movements per day. Okay. Hydration and mineral sufficiency is by far the most important. Okay. Now, by having sufficient magnesium, and like magnesium citrate you can take, aloe juice, once again, a great food that people do not realize how important aloe juice is. Aloe juice is very good for the small, large, and also intestine, but also stomach. All aspects of it's great for it. It has many massive benefits. And I can go into detail of all the constituents, everything I'm giving you. Obviously, we don't have so much time, but the idea is this. And therefore, having proper gallbladder function, because when gallbladder releases bile, it creates a slip and slide to the small, large intestine, and things move out properly. So really start with having the bowel move properly. If you're only having one bowel movement a day, I don't care if you take most incredible herbs to support your liver, it's just going to recirculate because you're going to reabsorb some of those things. You got to make sure that the bowel is moving on a daily basis at least 2 or 3 times a day.
Two to three.
Then you can,
Wait, hold on. So we're having a movement 2 to 3 times a day.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. Most people are constipated. Okay. And that's why, for
Is that
example,
because of dehydration?
I believe that dehydration, well, number one thing that I believe is because of inflammatory responses in the stomach, gallbladder, small intestine, large intestine. Inflammation is the major contributing factor to every chronic illness in the world.
Yep.
I mean, the fact that there's an immune response, there's certain cytokines, certain inflammatory markers and immune responses that cause slowing of the intestinal tract and other functions. Because remember, that's where people realize I went to chiropractic school, but my undergraduate background is in immunology and nutrition. And that's why I was obsessed with immunology. And so I'm a very big person that really looks at all the inflammatory triggers that lead to a person to, let's say, beat up their health. Because inflammation is a contributing factor to every chronic illness there is.
Right. Okay. So magnesium, bowel movements, aloe juice.
Yeah.
I know you've talked
support,
about apple cider vinegar. Like, let's
yes.
give a couple more things here.
So let's do this. Let's go back to then, once you can get the bowel movement proper, then you want to support the organ that metabolizes most of our toxic things, which is our liver. We have certain pathways within our liver that break down medications, if a person's on it, break down other toxic effects. And see, that's why a lot of people say there's contraindications in certain supplements. Well, what does that really mean? It means it supports the pathways that get rid of the drug that is actually creating some negative effect on you. And that's why some people can take a drug and they don't have the ability to get rid of it. And there's a major negative side effect because it just builds up and becomes a lethal dose. So therefore, you need to support liver function. And number one thing you can do to support liver function is reduce your overconsumption of glucose, of sugar. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is one of the most chronic illnesses that nobody's talking about.
Yep.
And people consume too much sugar for too long. We do need carbohydrates. There is no doubt. Don't get in this whole kick of we don't need carbohydrates. That makes no sense. Because my favorite carbohydrates are high fiber carbohydrates. I'm going to eat a ton of sauerkraut today. I'm going to eat some blackberries, blueberries, raspberries. I'm going to have an avocado. I'm going to do those things that are very high fiber, great carbohydrates that our body needs. So this concept of, when people say no carb, what they really are is they're getting away of the very high available glucose-based foods, which I'm in favor of. But don't lump them all together because there's higher fiber, there's lower fiber. You want to move things that are more high fiber, and that should be daily. I don't believe people eat enough protein or enough fiber. They say 30 grams for a woman, 35 for a male. I'm like, everybody should be well above 50 per day. It's one of the major factors that reduce all-cause mortality is fiber and stuff. Because there's GI health that comes with that. There's microbial, there's digestive, there's insulin resistance that's affected because even if you did have something that had some higher glucose, it reduces the absorption of how quickly it gets in our bloodstream. So I think that's why I start with people. Now you can support the liver with some major factors that now can really support it. Proteins, number one, but then you can add things like, now be careful, be guided by somebody, but milk thistle, dandelion. Dandelion is fantastic for release of bile from the liver into the gallbladder and gets great function that way. Schisandra, other great medicinal herbs that are very good at supporting and giving the constituents for those organs to actually do their normal genetic process of phase 1 and phase 2 of the liver. And so now you're going to start an overall consumption of things that are going to support the normal physiological functions that move these things on a regular basis, quote, detox, which once again, I think that word is like, oh, I'm detoxing. Okay, what do you mean? Your body always wants to remove waste product from it this way. That's why a car, when you start it, has the exhaust pipe. You know what I'm saying? And if the exhaust pipe was plugged, we know the engine would be bad. Well, you don't just stimulate and detox your engine. Now you get the engine working good.
And if does the detoxification process, does that happen mostly when we're sleeping? And does poor sleep interrupt that?
Here's what happens. Everything, there's an old saying that I have. If you can't sleep, you can't heal. Your body during sleep starts certain physiological processes because you don't have the burdens of certain stresses through the day, including eating. You know what I'm saying? That's why when men do fast, women should never fast. Never, 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 never. I've proven that scientifically for so long. Women that fast, it's going to destroy their hormones, destroy their health. Just that most women are obese, so they fast for a little bit, they lose weight, so they look a little better. I'm like, okay, and we want to get rid of the obesity, but you can't do that long term. You will mess up your body. Men need to fast on a regular basis. It's good to do that because of the stress it puts on our body. And then when you bring back in our nutrients, protein, certain things, our testosterone levels skyrocket even more. But Daron, when you first fast, your testosterone drops a little bit. It's supposed to. But then what it does is the recovery comes when you come back into fasting. Now you put your body in a stress state that now helps you build a fight or flight, an animalistic, Paleolithic ancestry aspect of survival. And now our testosterone goes up. So I love men going through fast and then start to build the body up and then retest them and see their testosterone go up, maybe from 300 to 500, 500 to 600, 600 to 800 and stuff. And my last test, I'm 49 years old and I was at 851. And I can maintain those levels and stuff.
Oh, wait, hold on.
here's
And you're naturally in the 800s.
Yeah, that's why when people are taking TRT and also going, then people say, yeah, I'm really healthy. I'm like, you're taking a chemical.
Right.
Remember, I've never taken a drug. I've never taken a testosterone. I've never taken TRT. I've never taken a bioidentical. I've never taken all those things. It's like going, no, and we do that all our patients. You just got to learn to maintain good testosterone levels, which just like business is effort and work. Do you know what I'm saying? And so therefore, guess what happens? And then as you understand the physiology of the body and basic macro, micronutrients and exercise and what we need to do in resistance, like I said, you're going to do wonderful things to maintain a great healthy level. And so I'm 49 years old. I go 100 miles an hour every single day. And people wonder why I can accomplish so much from a business standpoint, which I've been very successful in things that I've done because I have a physiological aspect of health that I can grind like crazy.
You're running on the rocket fuel of testosterone.
Yeah. But I also like to make sure I'm in bed between 9 and 10 and make sure that I get significant 8-hour sleep. People think I don't sleep. I'm like, I sleep better and longer than most people because I understand the physiological recovery that's needed. And I'm even in favor of people taking naps during the day.
Fantastic.
Grab a quick half an hour nap.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Love that.
I think naps are fantastic. And
sleep before midnight is it significant? If you got your 8 hours between midnight and 8, from what I understand, it's not as effective.
There's specific hormonal reserves, including growth hormone, that have been shown that if you get into bed, especially for women, between 9 and 10, you're going, especially even adrenal hormones. That's why when people, if you go to bed at 9, I like to put a standard for everybody, both men and women, get to bed at 9. Now, men can get up easily by 5 o'clock, crank it out. Women should still be in bed for their cortisol rhythm till at least 6 or 7. That's why I came up with the basically saying, listen, and I have a beautiful wife and 4 daughters, and I'm always yelling at them in a good way. I mean, I'm like, guys, get in the bed. Because why? I'm a protector. I want to protect my kids and my wife even from themselves. No, yes, ladies, I know you have so much to do. It's important. Yep. Go be dominant, be nurturers. But remember, I got to make sure that you stay healthy and vibrant because you want your beautiful wife around for a long period of time. And if she's has a burnt up house, you're not going to have the loving, go for it relationship, and you can have all the money in the world. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. You have a private jet, but she's sick and can't fly, and guess what happens? It's not that fun to private jet anymore.
Exactly. Okay, I gotta go back to testosterone. So I went in a few years ago. I was in high 500s, thought I was doing great. Walk me through getting from 500 to 800. And I guess this fits with energy too, because that was one of the things I wanted to ask is like energy and vitality. How do we strategically keep that up on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's very simple. Remember, it's all about being healthy. Remember, the vitality you're talking about is just normal biochemistry, normal physiology. And I'm sorry, you can't be consistently putting burdens on your body, even as a guy. Now, what do I mean by this? Don't freaking, I know it sounds weird, but it's gonna be something stupid. Don't be putting Gillette shave on your toxin on your face and shave. Don't be doing all the same burdens that women do that interfere with normal physiological processes your body has to recover from. Now, I do not believe that men get enough protein. I do not believe men get enough sleep. I do not believe men get enough constituents that are needed for basic physiological functions. I think their understanding of dietary and serum cholesterol is wrong because what happens is this: we need cholesterol even to produce testosterone.
Yep.
And so this concept of trying to minimizing certain things, and dietary and serum cholesterol have 2 different factors. That's why people get it wrong. Adipose tissue in men is a detrimental thing to testosterone production in men. I apologize. Production is easily accomplished by LH hormone and certain constituents, but a lot of men are aromatazing through fat tissue into estrogens. And that's why male breast cancer is at an all-time high. It's why men have man boobs. It's why men actually have some emotional feelings like women do, because they're converting their testosterone to estrogen. And a lot of men, for example, can cause aromatase by adipose tissue by having a bad diet, toxins, too much sugar. And that's why it's very important for men to get on our men saying, hey, you fat ass, get your ass back in the gym, get rid of that fat tissue, stop eating that sugar. And see, and I don't believe a woman should have the responsibility of saying that to their husband. I think men need other men to hold people accountable, because I can call you, I can say degrading things to you, and you think I love you. If a woman says that to you,
it just
you don't feel loved that way.
Exactly.
And I have a rule, and I even have a rule with all my closest friends, even my company. If you're, and if, let's say, and I'm gonna use Erin and Christian, because Erin's here right now, and she's a big part of the company, but so is her husband. She works here. And I say, Erin, if your husband's ever not doing what he's supposed to do, don't address him. Come to me, because then I'll go kick his butt. Because men are meant to kick each other butt.
Yes,
we are.
Exactly.
And it shouldn't be the burden of the wives to sit there and push their men. That, you know, because look at it this way. And Erin has 3 wonderful kids, and now she crushed it in her job. But you know what she did? For the first season of her life, she raised 3 wonderful kids. And now she's crushing it in business because her kids are older now. So now she enjoys the spoils of having wonderful children, and then now crushes it as far as a business person. And then her husband does the same thing, vice versa. Like, you know, my wife raised the kids and did things, and obviously I protected and provided and did things. But now my kids, my youngest is 10 years old now. And now I believe that's a good season of life for things for women to run into, because now they've accomplished a certain thing of this, but then there's different season of life for them. Exactly. We're kind of, you know, guys don't realize we kind of have a lucky season all the time, because we can go for things a lot more. We can dissociate. Even when my baby was born, I'm going to love it when I'm there, but I can leave, and testosterone makes me laser focused. I can forget that my child's even there. Women can't do that. Right. So that's why there's different seasons for men, or women, even their careers compared to men.
Oh man, it would be extremely difficult to overemphasize the importance of the distinction in biochemistry and physiology.
Yeah. Well, I teach from that standpoint, and that's it. So if people want to take cultural things and argue about them, then you have cultural thinkings that fight with each other. I'm saying, hey, listen, I'm just going to stick to biochemistry and talk about that, because then a woman, even if she has maybe, let's say, and a thinking of, like, let's say, the modern day feminism, I look at them and say, listen, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to culturally make yourself into male attributes, but I'm going to caution you on that, because it's going to make you physiologically and mentally sick. Yep. And I'm like, here's why. And then when I run their hormone levels, like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize my stress hormones were so high. I didn't realize my progesterone was so low. Well, yeah. Well, what does that? Well, the mental stress you're putting yourself through trying to keep up with us, good luck. Right. And it's awareness. And so I don't have to have culture debates. I don't want to have cultural debates. I want to have health and physiological debates.
Do you recommend like blood panels for the awareness of going to see your levels? And how often?
Yes. Well, it also depends if a person is going through some health issue. You might be tested more, but I test my testosterone levels, free testosterone levels, every single year, just to not only to maintain it, to show consistently that as I get older, I'm maintaining levels over 800. But on top of it, I'm getting older and my testosterone levels aren't dropping. And we've done that clinically for hundreds, well, probably millions of people now, after having so many clinics for 25 years all over the world. Because I mean, probably even since we have talked, my clinics have already saw thousands of patients since just we talking, you understand? So we have a lot of clinical, outcomes that way. So the idea is this: it's important to be able to maintain those levels, to maintain the vitality. I tell people this, ladies, it's much easier for you guys to get sick due to the changes of biochemistry. How do you feel as a good mom if you're sick? How do you feel as a good wife if you're sick? How do you feel as a good business person if you're sick? Men can handle and tolerate some things that can keep them going, even if their body breaks down a little bit. And we have to understand that culturally, and not just not trying to make men into women or men into men, because it just isn't working. If I'm wrong, how's it working for us today?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. You're spot on. Okay, one last question before we wrap. So you get to see, you have this privilege and responsibility of seeing so much data and so many people. Yep. and we've talked about a lot of things already, but do you see like a glaring obstacle in the way, that kind of a common denominator, like it's a big problem right now that we haven't already addressed? Is there something that you're like, yeah, this thing is such a huge deterrent to health?
Yes, and it's because of culture again. I will tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, no one will ever convince me different on this. I have way too much data, way too many labs, way too many clinical experiences just being personally with a doc, and some of that is the burden of mental stress on women's mental and physical attributes of their life.
Wow.
I can't stress enough how, and I think women have to understand that first, once again, awareness, then men have to understand that. And men, this is not a joke. You can be the greatest protector of that woman, or you can be the number one reason why she's actually getting sick too. So you have to know that. So therefore, it's an environment that you have to create in yourself as a man, for that, as far as a relationship to move forward. And what that, and being a protector, once again, just makes the family aware. Say, listen, honey, do what you want to do. You go live your dreams. We're in this together. But if I see an element of stress, it's my job to even protect you even from yourself, because women can nurture themselves and nurture other people to their own detriment. I've met wonderful women that will give themselves so much they'll put themselves physically sick.
Me too.
And I'm like, and as a man, go, no, honey, not going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, it's not an element of control; it's an element of protection.
Right.
You say, and so I believe there's certain burdens that men are supposed to take that women are not. And if that makes me, people culturally don't like that, well, then here's what happens. You live your life the way you want to. I'm cool with that. Let me live my life, and let's see the way your wife lives life,
yep,
her health, her vitality, her sex drive, everything. And let's take a look at mine.
Exactly.
And let's just compare data. And then let's see, you take your cultural experiment, and I'll take my cultural experiment, and let's see what works.
Exactly, because the results don't lie.
Right.
Oh,
exactly.
Gosh, that's a perfect way to wrap right there, brother. That's so powerful. Okay, I'll put a bunch of links in the show notes, but where's the best place for people to connect with you and your work?
Well, it's funny you say that, because about every couple of weeks I get kicked off of some social media platform. Just like my
Good
big
for
TikTok
you. That means you're saying the right things.
I would say the one that's been more stable is my Instagram, which is just Dr. Patrick Flynn. But also remember this is the stuff that I practice and stuff, the things that we do is practiced all over the US by many different people of all health backgrounds. You could be a nurse, could be a chiropractor, could be a medical doctor, could be a pharmacist, could be, a person that went through our academy. But here's what happens this. You can go to thewellnessway.com, and I put a ton of free information out there. As you noticed when I chatted with you before, a lot of people want to ask me about products, and I don't talk a lot about that. You know why? Without proper testing and labs and things to evaluate your body, I'm not a person that wants to say, take all these things, because there's no two individuals there that have the same, even if they get diagnosed with the same condition, have the same ability to recover or the same stressors in their life. So therefore, giving a protocol naturally or medically, you'll never see me. And that's why if you kind of notice, I kind of shied away from trying to answer those things, because people are like going, to make your bowels move, buy this for $19.95.
Right.
And you're telling me that everybody's bowels the same and everybody's causing a slowdown or a constipation by the same thing? That's physiologically impossible. We all go through different things.
Yeah.
So that's why care has to be personalized. But there's one thing that nobody disagrees with. When I run labs on somebody and I see all their hormone levels, there might be a perspective of how to go after those. So if somebody's testosterone is at 200, your standard medical doctor say, give them TRT, give them this, and this. And I'm like going, okay, but there's problems that are going to come from that too. Why don't we, like a carpenter, build it back to normal? But here, why it's even low is different for every individual. Is there some general concepts? Yes, but there's different for an individual, and that's why healthcare has to be individualized. It can never be blanketed. So therefore, thank God this has never happened where the government stepped in and said, everybody should do this treatment to get through something. Otherwise, we don't let it go back to normal. That's never happened in history, aka the last 3 years. But anyways, I digress on that one. So
awesome. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you so much. Thanks for being on.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.